a very positive experience. One of the reasons I went with PALMS was because it's a grassroots organisation and it's a small organisation, and therefore everybody in the office and everybody who supports you is very accessible. So yeah, it's been very positive. The orientation course that we went on was very informative and really helped me prepare, I think, for as much as you possibly can for living in a different culture and what to expect and how to interact within the culture as a guest. Whilst in placement, the support that PALMS gives you as a volunteer is very immediate and very, as I said before, accessible. It's just an email away, a phone call away, very easy to get to. And often, sometimes when, especially in situations where you're not too sure what to do or whether a problem has come up and things like that, they can give you suggestions as to how you might go around working out the solution for the problem. So it's been, yeah, it was very, very good and very supportive. There's another volunteer in Dili, on the outskirts of Dili, in a community called Bedois. And the parish priest in Bedois, Father Graziano, remembers PALMS because years and years ago he was taught English by a PALMS volunteer. And so when he became a priest, the parish priest of the Bedois, and he was in charge of 2 schools there, and he recognised that the schools needed support and the teachers needed support. So he remembered that volunteer from PALMS and he decided to get in touch. So he got in touch with PALMS, and then before we knew it, there was 2 of us over there in Timor, working in 2 schools, a primary school and a secondary school, mentoring teachers and teaching English as well. But our main role was to mentor teachers, Timorese teachers, and yeah, to build their capacity to deliver a decent education to the kids in their care. I always wanted to volunteer. I knew that even when I was in uni, I knew that my skills that I was gaining through the uni course, I wanted to use those in a different capacity other than just teaching in the typical, everyday mainstream school in Australia. So that was always on my agenda, and I suppose in 2013 things just sort of aligned for me. I thought it's time for a change. I'd been at a very good school in the Sydney diocese for 6 years. I thought it's time for a change, and I always wanted to volunteer, so I thought now is as good a time as any. So I did a little bit of research of different organisations, and I came across the PALMS brochure on the school staff room table, and I had a look at that. I thought, oh, they sound all right. So I got in touch, and before I knew it, I was speaking with Christine and exploring options of what we could do. Timor, I didn't necessarily specifically choose. I just I said to PALMS, wherever my skills would be needed or being able to take advantage of, that wherever would be fine. And so when Timor was suggested, I didn't really know too much about Timor except for what I'd heard in the news when I was younger with the occupation and all of those sorts of things. So I did a bit of research in Timor, about Timor, when it was suggested that that's where I'd go. And yeah, it really appealed. It's quite close to Australia, so my parents were able to come and visit when I was in placement, so that was fantastic. But yeah, so Timor wasn't necessarily a deliberate choice, but I'm really, really pleased that I ended up there. I think my personality is that I like challenging myself and going on a bit of an adventure, and I love travelling and experiencing different cultures. So I didn't have massive reservations. There were a few little niggling things, like obviously around family and things, and making sure that I kept in touch with them. But in terms of living in a different culture and living in a developing country, not too many reservations. I think I was more excited than anything else, and I think the orientation course that PALMS does, especially around living in a different culture and living in developing countries, I think that really sort of gave me an idea of what to expect. And so my expectations were, I think, realistic. And sometimes when, for example, I was expecting a squat toilet in our home, and then when we got there and there wasn't, I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, whew, that's great. So yeah, the realistic expectations I think I had helped me not become too not disappointed, but overwhelmed or wondering what on earth I'm doing here. So I'm Timor and in-country coordinator, Barry, who lives on the beautiful Toro Island, and he's very happy to always offer you support and offer you a break if you need to get out and have a bit of a rest from your placement or from the community that you're living in. He's very supportive there. In terms of from the office in Palms, as I said before, there's very accessible. With messaging or with emailing or calling, anything that you need, you can pretty much get straight away, instantly, from the office. Of course, they're limited in what they can actually do because they're in Australia, obviously, and you're in placement, but the advice that they offer and the suggestions that they might give you to navigate certain situations in placement comes from experience, and you can really tell that that's where, that the experience that the people in the office in Palms have had in placement themselves comes through in their advice that they give you. Sydney Catholic Schools has been really supportive in terms of making sure that when I came back from placement, all of my benefits that I had in for long service leave, for example, and sick leave, they were all still in place, which is really reassuring, and making sure that there is also a job to come home to. It may not be the same job that you had previously, but there is a job if you're a permanent member of staff to come back to. So that really helps in terms of, because it is a volunteer position, so you do get a basic living allowance, but you don't get enough money obviously to save or to get ahead. So having that security and knowledge that when you do come home from placement, there is that opportunity to go into a school and to have that employment is really reassuring, and it sort of helps you along the way. I think with Palms Australia, you get a very genuine experience. You're placed in a community that really needs and has recognised themselves that they need your expertise. With Palms, they don't go out looking for requests, they have people request assistance from them. So the community itself has identified their own needs and are really willing and enthusiastic to take advantage of what Palms can provide through a volunteer. They're very grassroots, so that you really do get an authentic experience of living in the community and working in the community and experiencing that culture and being with people from that culture, and it's an experience that I think is very genuine and authentic, and not many other, I think personally, organisations or volunteer organisations can truly offer that genuine, authentic experience. And it really does give you a whole new perspective on your own culture, and also what the important things in life are. It puts things into perspectives and it helps you prioritise what truly is important in life. And you gain the genuineness of the people that you work with, your local counterparts, and their genuine concern for you and eagerness to have you there. It really makes the experience all worthwhile. So, to do it, it can be overwhelming, and you can think it's quite daunting, and it is a huge step. You need to be ready for it within your own personal life, because if you're not going to embrace it as much as you would if you were truly ready for it. So do it at a time that's right for you, and be flexible, be open-minded. Know that it will be challenging and it will be frustrating and it will be all of those things that you think, and there will be times where you think, why am I here? What am I doing? But the vast majority of the time you'll be so grateful and so appreciative of the experience that you're gaining, getting to work with people who are completely and utterly different to you, not just in culture but in personality, and really having that experience of genuine and authentic relationship with people that you would never meet usually in your own everyday circumstance. My experience had been nothing but positive, and as I said, that's not to say that it wasn't challenging. There are many challenges that you'll face, but at the same time, the benefits, in my opinion, outweigh those challenges, and you've just got to take a step back every now and then and think about, well, the bigger picture and why I'm here and what's happening, how is it benefiting not just the community that you're working in, but also yourself. So, yeah, do it, basically. Coming back, I thought would be a bit of a challenge, having lived a very simple existence for 2 years and working with families who just so appreciative that their children get to go to school and have an opportunity to have education. I thought coming back might be quite frustrating in a way. I was sort of anticipating that I might not be as patient as I was before with the little things that tend to sort of get in the way when we're working here in Australia, just sort of that lead to frustration. But thankfully, no. I was lucky enough to come back to a wonderful school where the kids are great. And kids are pretty much the same everywhere, I think. Every child, no matter what background, no matter what culture, they like the same things. Soccer, football, music, and they like messing about in class sometimes, and other times they really like to focus. So coming back and teaching the children here, back in Sydney, was okay, it wasn't a challenge. Coming back and I suppose readjusting to my ordinary life in Sydney, it took a little while, but as I'm quite an adaptable person, so I sort of just take experiences for what they are and when they come and how they come and move on. In terms of how it's informed my teaching or changed my teaching, I think in the classroom, probably not a lot. I did realise over in Timor though that you don't need a lot to make creative and interesting lessons for your students. I think tomorrow, if a big disaster happened and all technology blew up, I'd be quite happy and okay in the classroom. You get creative. You've got limited resources in Timor, so you have to think outside the box and you have to be a bit creative with your lessons. And so I may not be as reliant on technology in the classroom as I had been before, but I think the big change or the major change for me coming back and teaching in Australian schools has been how I interact and how I deal with not necessarily the kids but other people within the school, so parents, colleagues, and it's just given me a different perspective in terms of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and trying to look at things from other people's perspective. The first one was when I mentioned Father Graziano before. He was the priest who requested volunteers for the schools. He was asked to go to Rome to study, and so the community put on this massive farewell party for him. And people from everywhere, people from the mountains came down and they were in traditional dress and there were drums playing, and it was spectacular. And prior to that, we needed to prepare for the feast, and which it was a massive feast. And I remember Gita, my fellow volunteer, and I were sitting with the women preparing the vegetables. The men were somewhere over there killing a cow to prepare for the big feast. And I remember there was no peelers or anything like that. We were doing some carrots. And it took me probably, 10 minutes to peel this one carrot with this knife. And I'm trying very feebly to peel this carrot, whereas all the other women were 5 seconds done. But they were very patient. They were probably looking at me thinking, what on earth is this girl doing? But they were very patient. There was lots of laughter. And I just remember looking up and having a look at my surroundings and just thinking, this is a little bit surreal. This is pretty amazing though. And that sort of was one of the first times that really hit me where I was and what I was experiencing. And then of course the next day there was the big celebration. So the bishop came, and it was just a wonderful, joyous, happy celebration, farewelling Father Graziano and wishing him the best. And I heard recently that he's almost finished his studies and will be returning to Dili very, very soon. So I'm sure there'll probably be a big party for that as well. There's an amazing island, 2 or 3 hour boat ride, off Dili called a Toro Island. Very spectacular, pristine marine environment. I think it's got one of the most biodiverse reefs in the world. There's lots of diving and coral and fish, so you go off and you just have to walk offshore or swim offshore for a little while, and there it is, all there. And staying at Barry's Eco Lodge, where it's very simple but amazing. The bungalows there are built in traditional Timorese style, and it's just peaceful and it's calm. The food is amazing. Again, food is amazing. You walk up and down the beach. It's near the local village, and on a Sunday there's the hive and the activity of the market, which is quite colourful and just a really relaxing, lovely place to be. A few things that I wouldn't pack, because what I realised when I got to Dili was that you could get everything that you needed in Dili. You might not necessarily get everything that you want, but everything that you need you could easily get in Dili. Of course, that might differ depending on where your placement is, but so I probably wouldn't have packed as many toiletries. I had half a bag full of toiletries that I didn't need. They were used, but I could have easily gotten those things in Dili. I'm definitely glad that I did pack my little music speaker. I love music, so having something there, very easy to, very portable. Took it down to the beach, took it to Atabai, took it everywhere, and just having that music, and that was something that I'm very pleased that I did pack. And a few good books. Yeah, it's always good to pack as well. I suppose at Easter time, Timorese do Easter spectacularly. I think on average we spent 3 hours from Good Friday to Easter Sunday, on average 3 hours a day, doing something related to Easter, religious celebrations. So on Good Friday, when we went to do the Stations of the Cross, we all assembled at this sort of paddock area, and we're going to do the Stations of the Cross all throughout the community. And I went to greet one of my colleagues, my Timorese colleagues, as you usually do. You go up and sort of do the cheek sort of thing, and I went to greet her quite happily, and she was like, no, mana, no. I was, oh, why? And what I didn't realise is that Good Friday is a day of mourning, obviously, because it's the death of Jesus. So they don't greet each other in the way that they usually would, because as a sign of respect and a sign of mourning, they sort of just do a solemn nod and move on. So she let me know about that, and the next year I was quite happy just nodding to everybody. So volunteering overseas is not for everybody, but you'll never know it unless you try it. And if you've been thinking about it, and if it's been gnawing away at you for a while, then to me that's an indication that it is for you. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and you can always come home. But I think with the support that Palms gives you and the support that Sydney Catholic Schools gives you, you really put yourself out there, take yourself out of your comfort zone, challenge yourself, and from my point of view, you'll do nothing but love the experience. You won't regret it. And as I said, if it's not for you, then you can always come home. So yeah, it's a great experience. Recommend it to everybody.